your point in time, that marker you've just placed on a timeline, 2011 is really a good place to start. So, by chance we get to start at the right place. But the start is actually before that. And I always make the analogy, what happened before 2011 was that we worked very hard on what I would call, let's pretend we're building a house, right? So it's site excavation and it's the foundation of the house. Nobody drives by the foundation of the house and says, wow, that's the most incredible looking foundation I've ever seen. Like, just take a look at that thing. Like, I want to bring my friends to look at that foundation. Nobody does that, right? But that foundation, if not done the right way, will haunt you for the remainder of, when you put the cool, sexy stuff on top of that, it will haunt you if you don't do it right. So pre-2011 is the foundation, it's the site work, and it's getting not only the physical stuff, but it's also a paradigm shift in the way we think. And as part of your question is then, so how do you reconcile the way it was with the way it is and the way we want it to be? I always talk about that, and I think that's the key. And again, that's where my psychology experience comes in. It's getting people to be. You got to get people a little uncomfortable, right? Because you can't get change without an agent fueling that. So, if you are content, and here is the danger with where we were, and a lot of places in Northeast PA were, because the dynamic and because the economics of our region shifted so much, coal went. We all talk about that. Like, sure, it's the great monster that haunts us. We need to put that in perspective. I think we need not put that away and forget about it. We need to put it in a place, just like you did that 2011 mark, timestamp it and say, what did we get out of that? How did we get here? So I say the following. Without northeastern Pennsylvania, it is easy to make the argument that the economic revolution that occurred in this country, the industrial revolution, is not fueled. Literally, it does not occur.
Of course.
Sure. And you see that. I mean, there was a time in history in the early 1900s when Scranton was the richest city in the world per capita. That's the truth. And
sure,
you had the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, and they were all here.
Yeah.
They were all here doing, Jay Gould was here doing business.
Of course.
And you see those names on buildings and on names of municipalities, right? So let's not make that be a monster. Let's make it be something that we're proud of and that we learn from, and then we move forward. And I always say, in order to move forward, you got to stand on the strong shoulders of the past. Let's not forget it, because there are some mistakes in that too, right?
Sure.
We see some of it. It still haunts us in those huge slag piles that we see still existing here in Northeast PA. So there are a lot of lessons to be learned. But let's then take that and let's create a little bit of discomfort, right? So that you shift to the end of your seat. Because the point I was going to make is that I think for a long time, and probably the part of the 70s and 80s, what happened in Northeast PA is that I think everyone's expectation got to zero. And there's a positive in that, but there's also a negative in that. The positive is that you're never disappointed, right? You wake up and you say, I expect nothing to happen, and nothing happens, and you're never frustrated. Because the flip side is that, wow, I'm going to wake up today and an elected official is actually going to do something that is valuable and has meaning in my life, right? When you do that, you set yourself up to be let down, and none of us like to be let down. So it's how do you find that balance? And the answer to that is, I think, to take very calculated, successive steps that are small steps that you demonstrate, the needle's moving in the right direction, but you're keeping the risk low. Like, don't run the trick play, the first play of the game. It doesn't make any sense. If you're the Beatles, don't play Let It Be. Save that for the encore. So I think part of it is, that how do you find that balance and how do you get people to want to change? But the other danger is that the word change sometimes has a perceived price tag attached to it. So when I first came into office, I was very young. I was 32 years old. I was the youngest elected mayor. And what I didn't want anyone to say was, oh, yeah, all those ideas are nice, but who's going to pay for that? And what's going to happen to our taxes? And the problem in that point in 1998 was in the city, the taxes were at the maximum level allowable by law. So I had no room to go. So I've always balanced that. So I think, that's a really important lesson. And I think we've gotten better at that. And let's not only look at Pittston. I think there's been great progress in Northeastern Pennsylvania.